Hello and welcome to World News here on TVP World. I'm Diana Sky. It's 12 o'clock in Warsaw. Ambassadors to the EU are reconsidering the possibility of providing Ukraine with a €140 billion reparations loan to fund weapons purchases and support its annual budget. Now, the talks come just days after the proposal fell out of favor among European leaders, particularly Belgian Prime Minister Bart de Wever, amid concerns over its legal feasibility. Let's now go live to our EU correspondent, Angela Skujins, who is in Brussels. Hello, Angela. Now, what can we expect from today's talks? I mean, will this likely shift the cards in Ukraine's favor? What can you tell us?
Good afternoon, Diana. So maybe 5 minutes ago, I would have said that this is not likely good news for the war-torn country. However, we just received an update from a diplomat speaking to TVP World on condition of anonymity that the ambassadors have agreed to receive a working options paper from the European Commission regarding how to fund Ukraine's budgetary needs over the next 2 years. While the reparations loan, that €140 billion cash injection, sunk like a lead balloon on Thursday last week among those European leaders, they did agree to meet the budgetary needs of the war-torn country from 2026 to 2027. That's what the ambassadors were discussing in Brussels today. There has been chatter that joint debt could be used from those European allies to give Ukraine the money that it needs to prop up its annual budget, as well as continue repelling Russian aggression. Another diplomat that spoke to TVP World on condition of anonymity stated that this was the worst option. They do not want to pursue with this. However, they will if the reparations loan does not hit the ground running. But this is not the end of the conversation or the dialogue. European leaders will revisit this controversial proposal at the end of the year. We know that countries like Poland, as well as the Baltics, are very much in favour of the idea using the cash proceeds of these immobilised Russian state assets currently at Euroclear in Belgium to give Ukraine the money. We have to wait and see whether Belgium, with that Prime Minister, can be convinced of the proposal's success at the end of the year.
Thank you so much, Angela Skujins. We will be coming back to you for more updates. The United States has notified Romania and other NATO countries of plans to reduce the number of American troops in Eastern Europe. Romania's Ministry of Defense announced this on Wednesday. Poland's defense ministry, however, said it had not received any information about a potential U.S. drawdown. Now, according to Bucharest, the decision also affects forces that were said to be deployed at Romania's crucial Mihail Cogălniceanu air base, home to over 1,400 U.S. troops. The Romanian Defense Ministry said the decision was anticipated given the shifting priorities within the Trump administration. It added that roughly 1,000 American soldiers will remain stationed in Romania. Ukraine marked the first combat deployment of its domestically produced Flamingo and Ruta long-range missiles. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy confirmed the reports. However, he did not elaborate where or when the missiles were used. While Zelenskyy praised the Flamingo missile as the most successful in Ukraine's domestic arsenal, its manufacturer, a company called Firepoint, is mired in controversy. Ukraine's National Anti-Corruption Bureau has been investigating the company over suspicion that it inflated component values or the number of drones it delivers to the army. Firepoint acknowledged that the investigation is underway, but denied all accusations and downplayed its significance. Only intense pressure on Russia can force it to the negotiating table, says Rachel Rizzo from the Atlantic Council. According to Rizzo, the West should apply more pressure with tougher sanctions and provide more weapons for Ukraine.
Vladimir Putin has shown time and time again that this conflict goes to the heart of his rule, goes to the heart of Russian imperialism, Russian revanchism. And so if you look at it through that lens, then of course he has no desire to come to the table and end things. Time is on his side. They have more weapons, they have more people, they have a stronger defense industrial base. And so I think until Vladimir Putin feels enough pressure, maybe that's economic pressure, maybe that's domestic pressure, although we haven't really seen domestic pressure build that much, until we see a mix of more support for Ukraine and tighter economic pain felt by Putin, and this an understanding that he is not going to walk away with the type of win that he thought he was going to walk away from. Until we get to that point, he's not going to show any willingness to come to the table.
The next ruling coalition in the Czech Republic's parliament is taking shape as three parties announced today that they will sign a cooperation agreement on November 3rd. Prospective Prime Minister Andrej Babiš's Ano party, which won the recent parliamentary elections, is joining forces with two far-right parties already facing controversy. Our correspondent in Prague, Andrew Sweeney, has more.
Well, the news today that there will now be an agreement signed between Andrej Babiš's Ano party and the two far-right parties, Freedom and Direct Democracy, SPD, and Motoristi Motoris, will be signed on November 3rd. This tells us something that really we already knew. It was already known that these three parties would form a coalition of some sorts. The devil was more in the detail. Specifically, there is no movement yet on ministerial nominees, which need to be put forward to the Czech President Petr Pavel. This has become an issue of some controversy here, as a Motoristi nominee for the foreign minister post, Filip Turek, has been embroiled in a scandal related to his social media posts, many of which contain racist, sexist, anti-Roma sentiment, including him dressed up in Nazi paraphernalia. After this agreement is signed on Monday, the new MPs that were elected in the early October parliamentary elections in the Czech Republic will take their seats behind me in the Chamber of Deputies. It is certainly true that Babiš may well not want to have to rely on these two far-right parties. The SPD is your classic anti-EU, pro-Russia party that actually wanted a referendum on Czech Republic leaving the EU. Babiš has told them that on no uncertain terms would it happen. Motoristi is the insurgent, the enfant terrible of Czech politics emerging out of nowhere, buoyed particularly by social media support, and is focused more on environmental issues. It's very likely the Czech Republic will leave several international agreements on green policies. We found out, well, what does that mean for a wider region? Well, it was reported earlier today that Czech defence spending will only be 2% under this new coalition agreement. Now, that is very low. It's certainly much lower than what United States President Donald Trump wants from NATO members. So while the coalition agreement may well be signed officially next week, there's still much to play for in Czech politics. For TVP World, Andrew Sweeney.
On Tuesday, thousands of people in Belgrade welcomed students who were hiking across Serbia in honor of the victims of a deadly train station accident that took place last November. Almost a year ago, a concrete canopy collapsed at the railway station in Novi Sad, killing 16 people and triggering the longest wave of protests the country has seen in a decade. Now, the students set off for the 420-kilometer journey from Novi Pazar, where all of them attend the local university. The group reached Belgrade by Tuesday evening and were joined by thousands of supporters. Encouraged by countrywide support, the students are aiming to reach the city of Novi Sad. The deadly collapse sparked nationwide protests led by the students themselves. Demonstrators blame the deaths on what they say is government corruption, lack of accountability, and call for a change of Serbian authorities. The World Justice Project has released the 2025 Rule of Law Index, which saw Poland move up one spot to the 32nd position. But Warsaw still has a long way to go to restore its rule of law. Professor Jovanka Jakubek-Lalik explains what challenges still await Poland and why.
The government entered dialogue with the EU Commission, trying to set the milestones to address the concerns in the rule of law, and especially in the independence of judiciary, constitutional tribunal, which still does not play fully the role that it's supposed to play. Also, the independence of judges, their status is also very important. We still have in the Polish legal system almost 3,000 judges which are not properly appointed for their position. Unfortunately, on the other hand, the government is limited with the possibilities to act. First of all, because the legislative process is not finalized, so the new proposals for the legislation are still not in place. First of all, because the president is not willing to participate in the process and is declining, is not willing to sign the acts of parliament.
The Tawila refugee camp is home to more than 500,000 people who were forced to flee their homes as the Sudan civil war spread to the Darfur province. Earlier this week, foreign television crews were allowed to enter the camp for the first time since the start of the conflict.
While the eyes of the world are focused on the horrors in Gaza, Sudan's civil war is in its third year. More than 12 million people have been displaced since April 2023, and close to 570,000 have found shelter at the Tawila refugee camp. Many arrive exhausted after a several days-long journey on foot.
The journey here was so difficult. We were thirsty and had to hide. For 3 days, even the children had nothing to eat. There were bombings, bombs falling everywhere, shells.
Those who encountered the paramilitary fighters of the Rapid Support Forces speak of violence, rape, and executions.
Many armed men arrived. We were not strong enough to oppose them. They tried to separate the women, but we refused. They killed my husband. They made us follow them and raped us by the side of the road, then left us there in the dark.
Most of the refugees in the camp fled from El Fasher, the capital of North Darfur province, about 60 kilometers away. The city was under siege for 18 months, but earlier this week, government forces started to withdraw as the city fell into paramilitary control.
We have received credible reports of summary executions of unarmed civilians, in particular men, forced to lay down on the ground and being shot. We also have credible reports of summary executions of civilians as they try and leave the city, which means they are not being given guarantees of safe passage.
The Rapid Support Forces denies the accusations of killing civilians and targeting non-Arab ethnic groups. However, the evidence presented by the UN and human rights organizations suggests otherwise.
And with that story, we end this edition of World News here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skye. Thanks for watching, and stay with us here on TVP World for more news and exclusive interviews.